Not long before his death on May 26, 2017, Zbigniew Brzezinski, a political scientist and advisor to many U.S. presidents and Western leaders, said that never before in history has the ruling white elites been more afraid than they currently are. Because throughout history, the white ruling elite's greatest power has always been that they control the information that the world believes. The control of information over what the masses believe is in fact godlike power. This is not an overstatement. Controlling the information that the masses believe is immense power and is a common tactic used to maintain power, particularly by leaders in totalitarian regimes. This control can involve censorship, the manipulation of the truth, and restricting of access of information. By limiting what the public can know, leaders can maintain their sense of control and influence, making it harder for dissent and opposition to emerge. This can also involve limiting access to information through controlling the media, education, and other avenues of knowledge dissemination. By controlling the flow of information, leaders can shape public perceptions, justify their actions, and suppress opposition. This is a key strategy for maintaining and consolidating power in many authoritarian systems. The control over information is immense power. However, thanks to a Nigerian computer scientist who is regarded as the father of the internet for developing a supercomputer that led to the creation of the internet, and thanks to an African-American computer scientist who developed what is a computer programming that is commonly known as .com, which allows everyone to have access to the internet, we now all have access to information. Therefore, the ruling white elites have lost their monopoly over information. Because of this profound erosion of their power, the white ruling elites now maintain their power by feeding lots of disinformation to the public that are designed to keep the masses divided and confused. It is the true reason why men and women are now so divided. We literally now have many women that strongly hold anti-men ideologies, as well as many men that strongly hold anti-women ideologies. Never has this division between men and women been more greater than the present now is. It's how the ruling elites keep us divided. However, the ruling white elites' divisive propaganda campaigns have been deployed most greatly against the black population. They've got black people more divided than at any previous time in our history. They've fed lots of false propaganda that changed us in ways that are against our own interests. We used to unanimously agree that white oppressive forces were our worst enemies. Today, millions of black people are now insisting that we're now our worst enemies. It isn't hard to see that this noted change within the black population clearly benefits the white society. The white society exploits its monopoly over information that the black population receives to manipulate the black population to think and behave in ways that are against our own interests, and instead in ways that serves and protects the interests of their white society. This is all possible because regardless of how intelligent people are, if it's possible to control the input of information that people receives, it's entirely possible to control what people will think. And because people's behaviors align with the information that they receive, it's therefore even possible to control how people will behave. The true reason why millions of black people now perceives ourselves as being our own worst enemies and reveres Caucasians in spite of such a brutally horrific history of the contrary is directly connected to the white society's monopoly over information that the black population receives. Our plight and condition has nothing to do with a silly slave syndrome myth. The truth of our plight and condition is directly connected to the white society's monopoly over all of the information that we receive. Because they control the information that we receive, this allows them to control what we believe and even how we will behave, keeping us believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves is how they keep us demoralized, divided, and self-loathing. It also attacks the core foundation of what bonds us as a people and shifts our collective aggressions away from the white society and redirected towards ourselves. And as long as we're kept within this condition, we can then be ruled over forever. We are currently under a disinformation propaganda campaign system that they began continuously deploying against us in response to the 1960s unprecedented unified black protest movement. It's how they neutralized the Black Power movement. They also now have us more confused about our origin and identity than at any previous time in history. During the 1960s, African Americans unanimously agreed that we came from Africa. Today, millions are now insisting that we're not from Africa, but that we are instead the true indigenous Americans. They believe this, although millions of African Americans have taken DNA testings that have scientifically confirmed our African identity. And although the DNA found within the bodily remains of ancient Americans does not match ours, those body remains matches those that we currently recognize as Native Indian of America. The Native Indians of America, excuse me. Millions of us are also now insisting that we're the true Jews found within a Bible that was brutally beaten into the blood-soaked minds of our enslaved ancestors by their ungodly enslavers. That's ridiculous. Given these facts, to claim that the Bible contains our story is in fact ridiculous. And yet millions of us are now insisting that it's true. And no, the Bible was not written by Ethiopians. The Bible was in fact written by ungodly Romans in the year 325 that routinely engaged in massive orgies, wife swapping, and dead sports. The Bible did not reach Ethiopia until the year 341, that's 16 years after the Romans wrote the fictional Bible. Those of us who don't research facts for ourselves will always fall for nonsense. We are not the people found within a fictional Bible written by our most ungodliest enemies and brutally beaten into the minds of our ancestors. A Bible written by our proven most ungodliest enemies and history's most ungodliest group of people is totally disqualified from containing the true words of God. And a Bible that strongly condones slavery is also disqualified from being containing the true words of God. They've got our people so mentally enslaved that telling the truth insults millions. And the most ridiculous statement that a black man can say is that he's a real nigger. But to our own detriment, that ridiculous statement is being stated daily by millions of black men in the United States. We never made the N-word ours. And using it does not empower us. Those who believe those things are ignorant of the truth. The truths are both the opposite on both counts. It was actually through negative media social engineering that white oppressive forces conditioned, socialized millions of us, African Americans, to self-identify ourselves by the N-word. And doing so actually negatively impacts us at a psychological level. The reason why they manipulate us to self-identify ourselves by the N-word is because to subjugate and control a large targeted population, the first step is to neutralize their alpha males, aka those possessing warrior spirits. These are the black males that are psychologically wired to protect our women and to defend our communities. White social engineering scientists neutralize our black alpha males by socially engineering millions to self-identify ourselves by the N-word. This is because words, when repeated often enough, has power over our subconscious minds. We function based upon the words that we repeatedly self-identify ourselves as. This is why men that repeatedly call themselves thugs are more likely to engage in a fight than to avoid one. It's also why women that repeatedly declare themselves as being bitches tend to often become stubbornly unreasonable. We literally psychologically become the words that we repeatedly call ourselves. It is a psychological phenomenon that white oppressive forces have thoroughly researched. When we repeatedly call ourselves by the N-word, this psychologically conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, inferior identity that makes us more accepting of our subordinate status within the white dominant society. This aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance over the black population. And as long as we're perceiving our people as a bunch of N-words, we're not willing to die for our people. And as long as we call ourselves by the N-word, we will always remain beneath the white society. And when we call each other by the N-word, it also causes us to dehumanize each other. This makes it much easier to mistreat and to even kill each other. They've placed an elaborate spell upon our subconscious minds by manipulating us to call ourselves and each other by the N-word. When we perceive ourselves by the N-word instead of as Africans, this also divides us from native Africans. When we Africans in the U.S. are divided from native Africans, we lose our global numerical advantage and we're stripped of all hopes of ever defeating global white supremacy. When we call ourselves by the N-word instead of as Africans, this also separates us from our unifying African heritage. Without having a based identity to connect to our vast cultural wealth, over time we become further fragmented and we become weaker as a people. We can then be made into anything the white oppressors wants us to be made into. We are drowning in disinformation. What they've done to us is called ideological subversion. They deployed an ideological subversion against the African American population in response to the 1960s unprecedented unified black protests. Ideological subversion is when the oppressors exploit their monopoly over information that the oppressed receive by feeding the oppressed lots of disinformation that manipulates the oppressed to think and behave in ways that are against their own interests. It literally changes the culture of the oppressed in ways that are against their own interests. It's a true reason why we went from calling ourselves brothers and sisters during the 1960s to now calling ourselves by the N-word and the B-word. It's also why we changed from calling our oppressors crackers to now calling them white people. We've been changed to respect ourselves lesser and to respect them more. What I'm telling you is the truth. They have us drowning in disinformation, idiotic ideologies to keep us confused and self-hating. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up to our reality. It's time. One love and peace.